Hello and welcome to DOZ Monologues, hosted by a rebel. DOZ Monologues, also known as DOZ Chronicles audio stories, aims to educate, inspire, and drive societal change. All stories are written and narrated by a rebel, and all rights are reserved, including the right of reproduction in whole or in part in any form. This is episode 11, titled Morayo. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Morayo. Morayo, what is your reason for pursuing this man? Why are you searching for him at his mistress's home? These two questions changed my life, transforming me from a full-time housewife living in poverty to a senior lecturer at the university, all within 10 years. I was born into poverty and accepted it, unable to see how school could change my life. I attended school out of obligation, and though I was bright, I didn't focus on my studies since I thought education was pointless. There were wealthy people in Sango-Ota where I grew up. I admired their cars and houses from a distance, but those things seemed so far from my reality that I didn't even dare dream. How would I achieve it? Who dash monkey banana? At 19, shortly after graduating from secondary school, I met Dapo, a 30-year-old man working in a construction company in Ota. I became pregnant very quickly, and instead of attending university, I got married and became a full-time housewife. Since I saw no value in education and placed greater value on marriage, I viewed this development as a positive one. Life with Dapo was hard. Living with his parents caused tension, arguments, and eventually Dapo began to hit me. I had also given birth to 5 children in the first 5 years of marriage, and I had gained weight and appeared older than I was. Dapo started cheating, and I was always in a fight with him or another woman. Dapo's involvement with Adunni worsened things. She was a single mother of 3 children, fathered by 3 married men. She had a large beer parlour outside her house where she sold beer, other alcoholic beverages, and pepper soup, playing loud music late into the night. Dapo started spending the night there, and I would often go to confront him, which led to fights with Adunni. I called her a prostitute and demanded that she leave my husband alone. I did not know any better, and the women around me, like Shade, who resembled Adunni except that she wasn't involved with my husband, would often tell me they saw Dapo with another woman. Their words would provoke me, fueling my anger. Naively, I would go out to fight for their entertainment. This was how I spent 11 years of my life, until that fateful day when I was asked those 2 life-changing questions. Dapo had been staying at Adunni's house for 2 weeks when Shade provoked me by saying, "You're a fool. No one can keep another woman's husband that long unless certain that the woman is a fool." To prove that I wasn't a fool, I decided to confront Adunni. It was a Saturday morning, and she and her workers were cleaning up after a long night of selling alcohol and pepper soup. I charged in like a wounded lion, fighting and shattering their plates and drinking glasses. Dapo stormed out and gave me a good beating, along with Adunni and her workers. My clothes were torn. Thankfully, a woman appeared from nowhere and put her wrapper around me, and then the police came and took me away for damage done to Adunni's bar. I was detained at the police station when Dr Teniola Orafidiya arrived to speak to the police about an attempted burglary at her home in Ota. Dr. Teniola Orafidiya, known to all her friends and associates simply as Dr. Tenny, was an extraordinary woman. At 35 years of age, she had not only attained a doctoral level degree, but was also a senior law lecturer at a prestigious private university in Lagos. She had written and published numerous law textbooks, which had earned her a substantial fortune, allowing her to live in a style that was unusual for a single woman with no man to provide for her needs. Dr. Tenny was a very accomplished woman with a good heart and loved helping the people of Ota improve their lives. I had known her for years as we both hailed from Ota, where she ran a non-governmental organization sponsoring young girls in school, and my two older daughters were recipients of her scholarships. She had returned home to Ota for the weekend, which was her usual practice. When she saw me at the station, she took an interest in me, bailed me out, and paid for the items I had broken at Adunni's bar. Later that day, I visited her home at her invitation and shared my story, hoping that once I explained my issue, she would offer me some wise advice. Most married women would not take their marital matters to a single woman seeking advice. But I took my matter to her because I believed she was a wise woman. She had to be wise to have accomplished as much as she had. She listened attentively, but her subsequent questions were unexpectedly probing. I had not encountered such inquiries before, particularly from Sade or the other women in my social circle. I composed myself in my chair as I endeavored to recount my story once again. It appeared she may not have fully understood my initial explanation, given the nature of her follow-up questions. Dr. Tenny, I began, he is my husband. He paid my bride price. Well, he either doesn't think so or doesn't care, given the way he's treating you. So my question to you again is, what is your reason for pursuing him? Why are you searching for him at his mistress's home? He's given you 5 children, whom he is both unwilling and unable to provide for. You want him to come home and give you the 6th? Her words were very strange indeed. In fact, she was unusual. She was asking if I wanted my husband home to impregnate me. What sort of question was that? He was my husband. His place was at home with me, and not with that husband snatcher, Adunni. I opened my mouth to speak, but closed it when she held up her hand to indicate she wasn't done talking. Morayo, what do you do for a living? She asked. I frowned, wondering what that had to do with anything. I am a full-time housewife, I replied. What was she going to say next? Would she claim that I lost my husband to Adunni because I lacked money, unlike Adunni, who owned a large beer parlour in front of her house? So, your husband single-handedly provides for the family? She asked. Yes, Dr. Tenny, I confirmed. That's correct. And how have you and your 5 children been surviving since he's been at this other woman's house the last 2 weeks? His parents have been feeding us. We live in the family house, and when they cook, they give us something to eat. I see, she said quietly. So you're telling me that you and your husband have had 5 children while living under his parents' roof? Yes, I said. For the first time since I married Dapo, shame over our living situation washed over me. How long have you been married, and how old are your children? We've been married for 11 years, and our children are between the ages of 11 and 6 years. It appears to me that you married quite young, she observed. Yes, I did. I was only 19 years old and pregnant with our first when we married. So I take it that you didn't finish secondary school? I finished secondary school, but didn't go further as there was no money and I was pregnant. So marriage was the preferable option? Yes. And you do not work? Yes. My husband wanted me to stay home and look after the children. And what does your husband do for a living? She asked. He is a payloader operator and works with Reynolds Construction Company here in Ota. And he has this woman on the side whom you fear will break up your marriage. Yes, I answered. Adunni is known in Ota to take other women's husbands. She crossed her slim, shapely legs and studied me for a while. You speak as if your husband is an object, without a mind, will, emotions, or choices. It sounds like you're describing him as if he were a mobile phone that can be picked up without the owner knowing, put in a pocket, and carried away. What did I say to that? I wondered. I was not as intelligent as Dr. Tenny, nor did I have the same educational background. As a result, I struggled to find clever answers to most of her questions and did not fully grasp her way of thinking. What I knew was violence. If my husband went to Adunni's house, I would go there to fight her and free my husband. In my world, it was the done thing. But Dr. Tenny obviously thought differently. Why have you freely shared your story? She asked. I thought you might be able to help me. Help you how? I thought you would advise me on how to get my husband back. You are a very knowledgeable woman. I am sorry to disappoint you, as I am unable to advise you on how to get your husband back. Getting your husband back involves his agreement, and that's something neither of us has control over. He alone can decide whether he wants to return to you and remain with you. I can't help you get him back. I can only help you. A smile spread across my face. Any assistance you can offer would make me very happy, Dr. Tenny, I responded. It won't be financial help, she clarified, so don't get your hopes up. But if you will listen to me and do as I say, you will transform your life. Whether or not your husband returns home to be with you is another matter. How do I transform my life, Dr. Tenny? I asked, wondering about the direction in which the conversation was going. I was seeking advice to help me keep my husband by my side, but she couldn't offer that. What other advice did she have for me? What transformation was she referring to? I think you should find something to occupy your time. You're too idle, which is why you keep going to his mistress's home looking for him. He hurt you this time, and it's concerning. What if he seriously injures you or worse next time? I watched her in silence, realizing for the first time that being beaten could be fatal. If you die, what will become of your children? I didn't have to think too hard or for too long to realize the truth. If I died, my children will be doomed. Dapo would quickly move on to Adunni and leave our children with his parents. His parents, who are elderly and living on a pension, might be able to provide them with food, but they couldn't afford to send the children to school. Those who were not currently benefiting from Dr. Tenny's scholarship would likely have to stop their education or be sent to live with Dapo's relatives, who would use them as house help in exchange for funding their education. I shuddered at the thought of it all. Are you ready to live for your children? She asked. And when I nodded my head vigorously, she went on. So forget your husband, address your life, and change it to become more than just alive. Become a better mother. Are you ready for this? Yes, Dr. Tenny, I said. That was when things began to change for me. Dr. Tenny urged me to go back to school, sharing how education changed her life from poverty to success. Inspired by her story, I became determined to pursue my studies. I considered ways to support myself financially and I decided to begin selling akara. I had contemplated this venture for a long time, but I hadn't taken any action. We lived in an area where many construction workers passed by on their way to work, and they would buy from me, as most left their homes early without having eaten. When I spoke with enthusiasm, Dr. Tenny handed me a stack of cash, giving me the means to pursue my dreams without further excuses. In the following days, I became so preoccupied with sourcing materials for my business that I entirely forgot about Dapo and Adunni. When he came home, I didn't mention anything about Adunni or what had happened during my visit to her house. I fulfilled my duties as a wife to the best of my ability, and a week later, he left again for Adunni's house while I focused on starting my business. As soon as I started, people gathered around me, and within a few days, I ended up buying a larger pan. Every weekend when Dr. Tenny returned to Ota, I visited her to share the progress I had made. She was always thrilled to see me and praised every effort I put into my business. 2 months after launching my business, I began attending evening classes to prepare for the JAMB exams. Excited yet cautious, I worried Dapo might interfere, so I hoped he'd stay at Adunni's and remain unaware of my plans. Financially, I was slowly gaining independence from him and his family. From the moment I launched my business, I no longer depended on his parents to support me or my children. I could now supply my children with snacks and school supplies, and I felt confident that soon I will be able to cover their school fees as well. I envisioned a new life for myself and my children, a world without Dapo, free from violence, where I could live peacefully with my kids. My plans filled me with energy, as did my school and my business. People were surprised to see that I no longer searched for Dapo at Adunni's house. One evening, as I was returning home from classes, Shade stopped me just as I was about to enter the compound. "Morayo, where are you coming from at this time?" she asked. It was around 7 p.m., still early by most standards, but previously you would never have found me outdoors at that hour. Back then, I was a dedicated housewife, and my ventures beyond the house were limited to shopping, picking up or dropping off the kids at school, or looking for Dapo at Adunni's place. All tasks I always completed before evening set in. "I went to school," I replied. "School?" she asked, surprise evident on her face and in her voice. She seemed just as surprised as my parents-in-law had been when I gave them the same answer about where I'd been. "Yes, school," I answered. "I am preparing to write JAMB so I can gain admission into the university." She burst out laughing, the exact same way my parents-in-law had laughed. I didn't mind the laughter. I reckoned that if they all believed I was wasting my time, Dapo wouldn't try to oppose what I was trying to achieve. "For a moment, I actually thought you were serious," she said, dabbing at the tears that had formed in the corners of her eyes as she laughed. "Please stop joking around and be serious. Things are happening. I've heard that your father-in-law was seen at Adunni's house a few days ago. People believe your husband may be trying to marry Adunni as his second wife." I reflected on her words and recalled the question Dr. Tenny had posed to me months earlier. What did I want with Dapo? My honest answer was nothing. I didn't want him to sleep with me any longer, that was for sure. I endured sex so as not to be accused of neglecting my wifely duties. Each time, I prayed that he would not give me a disease that would cut my life short. My focus had shifted from Dapo to my children, and how I could transform my life for their sake. If Dapo wanted to marry Adunni and any other woman, that was his choice. I would wait patiently until I was financially able to leave him and the sham we called a marriage. Are you not saying anything? Sade's words interrupted my thoughts. I am telling you that your husband may be making plans to marry Adunni, and you are silently gazing into space. What type of mumu behavior is this? I offered a slight smile and responded, Sade, I appreciate you bringing this to my attention. I then turned to proceed into the compound. Have a good evening. Did I start playing detective, snooping around and eavesdropping on my parents' in-laws' conversation to discover if it was true that Dapo might be interested in paying Adunni's bride price? No. I was too busy with my own life and too busy praying that Dapo would not come around the house long enough to disrupt my plans. I knew he had heard about me attending jam classes in the evenings, but he never asked me, possibly because he didn't take it seriously, just as his parents hadn't. However, that was soon to change when I passed my exam and gained admission to Lagos State University to study business administration. I restructured my Akara business, allowing me to juggle both the business and my classes. Also, Dr. Tenny was so excited, she offered me a personal scholarship, not from her foundation, but from her own pocket. It was not based on excellent scores, but rather on my ability to remain in school. I was glad of her support. Everything was good, but 4 months into my school resumption, I had a confrontation with Dapo. As he had been spending time with Adunni, he was unaware that I had started university. His parents were also unaware, as I had told them nothing. They had not asked, possibly assuming that when they saw me going back and forth with a school bag and books, I was still attending jam classes. I returned from school at about 5 p.m. and to my surprise, Dapo was home, sitting outside with his parents, chatting and laughing loudly when I entered the compound. I greeted them all and hurried to our room to change my clothes. Immediately I stepped inside, and even before I had taken off my shoes, he walked in. I see that you are still not tired of this your stupid idea, he said. You are going to jam classes as if you are still a small girl, as if the time has not already passed for that. At your age, you should be preparing your children for jam. I shrugged. My children will write jam and go to the university when their time comes. Now it is my time, and if I do well in 4 years, I will have finished from the university. Finished from the university in 4 years? He scoffed. Won't you pass jam and enter the university first? I smiled. I've been accepted to university, I said. It's my first year. If I do well, I'll graduate in 4 years and find a good job. His smile vanished. You are in university? He asked. Yes, I am. Who did you tell? He shouted angrily. Have you forgotten that you are under my authority and that I am the head of this household? Just because I didn't say anything while you were attending your jam classes, do you think you can decide to go to university without discussing it with me? That school ends today. If you make a profit from your Akara business, consider using it to pay the children's school fees. If you step out of this house again to attend any university, your bags will be waiting for you outside when you return. If you want to go to school, go back to your father's house and do it there. I laughed and he frowned. Do you think I'm joking? He snapped. Go to that school again and you'll regret it. This ends now. He took the books from my bag as well as other books that were lying around in the room. He then went out into the compound, where he dropped them on the ground, poured kerosene on them, and set them on fire. I stood there, tears streaming down my cheeks, watching as my notebooks and textbooks, yes, even those I had used during JAM class, were set ablaze. All around me, I could hear the voices of my children and parents-in-law. My children cried and offered their sympathy, while my parents-in-law insisted that I deserved this punishment for being a disobedient wife. That night, I was relieved when Dapo returned to Adunni's house, leaving me alone to think. I realized I needed to move out immediately with my children. Though I had the money, I didn't have time to find a new place. I sent a text message to Dr. Tenny, and she quickly offered us a 2-bedroom apartment close to my school. The flat belonged to her, and she was willing to rent it at a reduced price to support my education. Early the next morning, I visited the location to obtain the keys. Subsequently, I brought my children under the pretense of attending the evening church service. To avoid arousing suspicion, the children were unable to take most of their belongings, which necessitated additional expenses to replace items left behind, including their school books. Dr. Tenny didn't just help us escape. She stood firmly by my side. When Dapo and his family tried to create trouble, they were unsuccessful, and their only way to punish me was by abandoning me to care for my 5 children alone. However, Dr. Tenny went a step further by extending her personal scholarship to cover the costs of my other 3 children who were not already on scholarship from her foundation. After she had done so much for me, I had no other way to repay her but to excel in school, because I understood that ultimately seeing my life transformed was her biggest motivation. I allowed myself to be transformed as I went through school, letting the school experience permeate me. Upon completing my degree program, I was employed as a junior lecturer, which provided an opportunity to pursue my master's in business administration. With that completed, I began the journey towards my Doctor of Business Administration while advancing in my career as a university lecturer. A decade has passed since I left Dapo, and my life has transformed in ways I could never have imagined. I've built my own home, drive a nice car, and have even traveled abroad to attend conferences. People now call me Dr. Morayo, even Dr. Tenny, which still feels surreal. I never dreamt such things were possible. My oldest daughter has completed her degree program and is heading to the UK for her master's degree, having been awarded a scholarship. Our lives are vastly different from what they were 10 years ago when I walked away from Dapo. Dapo is still living in his parents' house. He lost his job at the construction company about a year after the children and I left. Since then, he has not been able to secure another permanent position. He works on building sites whenever opportunities arise and depends on his parents when there are no jobs available. His relationship with Adunni ended when she attracted the attention of a wealthy man, which led him to drink heavily. I have no hard feelings towards him. Instead, I am thankful for Dr. Tenny, whose guidance helped me free myself from a marriage that had reached a dead end. The end. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of episode 11 of DOZ Monologues. DOZ Monologues will return next week with another episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave your comments and subscribe, like, and share if listening on YouTube. To contact me, please visit my website eturuviarebo.com or email me at eturuvi@eturuviarebo.com. I invite all story lovers to explore my novels and novellas available on Amazon and Google Books. For audiobook enthusiasts, they are also on Audible. Thank you for listening. I am your favorite storyteller, Eturuvi Erebo, and I'll be here next Friday with another story.